This week on ANN, Adventists handle supply distribution in Saipan in response to Typhoon Sodalor.
Oakwood University sets out to be the healthiest college campus in the United States.
And an Adventist evangelist in the U.S. tragically dies in a plane crash.
These stories and more coming up.
This is ANN, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church. Thanks so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, as tens of thousands of residents in Saipan are recovering from Typhoon Sodalor, a team of Adventist Community Services is assisting in relief efforts. The team from the Seventh-day Adventist Church in North America set up a multi-agency warehouse to house and distribute supplies coming from Guam and other countries. The storm, which struck the island in early August, left more than 48,000 people without power and a majority of the island's residents with limited access to fresh water in their homes. According to the Red Cross, power and water supplies may not be restored for several weeks. Adventist Community Service workers are also providing technical training for residents to be able to maintain the warehouse long term. Sean Robinson, ACS Director for Disaster Response for North America, said, "Sometimes we do not realize just how many people are relying on our service and ministry. Every act of service is an act of worship and changes people's lives." Dan Weber, Communication Director for the Seventh-day Adventist Church in North America, shared his firsthand experience in Saipan with Julio Munoz, Associate Director of Communication for the Seventh-day Adventist Church in North America.
Typhoon Sodalor struck Saipan on August 2, so that's about a month ago.
That's right.
Right, and great devastation, thousands of homes destroyed, tens of thousands without water, electricity. Still, Adventist Community Services responded right away, and you were there last week.
Yeah, I spent about a week there on the ground. ACS got there about 3 weeks afterwards.
Okay.
And they were invited by FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Association, and they respond to disasters within U.S. territories.
This is the U.S. government
That's
assisting
right.
people?
That's right. And
Okay.
people say, well, why are we in Saipan?
Right.
Well, Saipan is a Commonwealth of the United States, and they're part of the North American Division.
Where exactly is Saipan?
Okay, Saipan's about a 45-minute flight north of Guam.
Okay, so that's
far out in the Pacific Ocean.
not what you'd expect to be part of the North American
Not part of the
Division.
North American Division, but they
Okay.
became part of the North American Division in 2012.
Okay.
So ACS is responding there to the needs. So they were invited by FEMA to come in and help set up a management warehouse where basically they take unsolicited goods that come in from other agencies, they organize them, and then they facilitate the distribution to other agencies that can utilize them.
So that doesn't sound like the typical aid where you see people, handing out water or food,
Right.
but why is that all important of part of the overall
Well,
response?
that's important because some agencies may say, oh, I need this, but I've not received this. But another group may have gotten it and said, oh, I got 5,000 cases of water. I can give you 2,000 cases. I only need 3,000 for my group. So it's a great way to share resources and meet people's needs. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So we were shopping in a Costco, or like a Costco knockoff kind of
Right.
store. And we ran into a lady from the Southern Baptist, and she's done a feeding program. She's feeding 850 people every
Oh, wow,
day.
that's great.
Right. So for a month,
Yeah.
she's feeding that many people. And she's like, I'm out of food. I've got nothing.
Yeah.
And we were like, hey, we got stuff in the warehouse. Why don't we bring it over tomorrow? Oh, that's great. That'd be wonderful. You bring it over. And by the way, if you want to bring like hygiene kits, we'll allow you to distribute hygiene kits there to the people in need. So it's a partnership where different groups are coming together.
And so partnerships are essential here, I imagine. One group can't do it alone.
No, there's many organizations that are involved, some from the national level, often most times from the local level, some faith-based, some just community-based, and the government as well.
So some people watching this may not have heard about the typhoon. It's not in the national
That's
media
right.
a lot, and they want to help. What's the best way for them to help?
They can get updates. They go to communityservices.org. That's ACS, our Adventist Community Services
Okay.
website. And they can find updates there. There's also a link if they want to donate.
Okay, pretty easy to donate. Use a credit
That's right.
card, go
That's right.
online.
This is going to be a long-term recovery. The biggest thing they're going to need is to rebuild the homes for the people that had damage. 8,000 homes were damaged. Over 1,000 homes were totally destroyed.
Some reports I read said it may not be till the end of this year,
I
or
think-
maybe
I think
beyond,
beyond that.
till they're
I think
back to
beyond
restored
that.
to what they were before.
ACS is actually, there's going to be a long-term response. So ACS was there with the disaster response team. Now there's going to be a long-term response, and ACS plans on being part of that.
Now, after this recovery effort, there's other news that happens in the North American Division. They can sign up for the newsletter, for North American Division newsletter.
Right. The best way to keep up with what's happening in North American Division is our News Points weekly electronic newsletter. Okay. It'll have stories and pictures and videos, and you can find that on our website at nndadventist.org.
Okay. Dan, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
An Adventist university in the U.S. state of Alabama hopes to become the healthiest college campus in the nation. Oakwood University launched Healthy Campus 2020 during its recent student orientation and registration week. Faculty and staff encouraged students to stand out with 8 laws of health: sunshine, temperance, adequate rest, nutrition, drink water, outdoors, use physical activity, and trust in God. University administration believes the health guidelines will help decrease the risks of many diseases and can also increase academic performance. During the school's orientation, more than 300 new students participated in exercise activities and had the opportunity to receive personalized health transcripts based on the results of health screenings available on campus. Fred Harding has more on why it's so important for schools to emphasize their students' health.
I think it's really important. Too many people wait until they are older and have health problems before they become interested in health. And there's lots of evidence that says that if we can get people when they're younger to begin to follow healthful living principles, that they will not only live better, but they will have less disease and probably live longer. So it makes incredible sense to start in the school years. And I think that Oakwood needs to be commended for their program of emphasizing to all classes and all majors the importance of making good, healthy choices.
William Pergerson, a Seventh-day Adventist pastor and evangelist, died last week in a plane crash. The 48-year-old minister is survived by his wife of 18 years and their 2 teenage children. According to the Adventist Review, Pergerson, who was a seasoned pilot, had just taken off from an airport in the U.S. state of Michigan to make a 20-minute journey to his home when he experienced suspected engine trouble. When he tried to make an emergency landing, the plane exploded. A memorial service will be held at the Battle Creek Tabernacle September 19 and 20. Pergerson was known for having a close walk with Christ and finding various ways to minister to the underprivileged.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church's sanitarium in the South Pacific recently announced its plans to cease food production at the organization's oldest facility. Record and Focus sent this report.
Over the next 3 years, manufacturing operations at the Currumbong factory will be gradually moved half an hour south down New South Wales Central Coast to the Berkeley Vale facility as well as to Brisbane. Sanitarium management says it was a tough decision to make, but the ageing Currumbong plant is increasingly difficult and expensive to maintain. In an official statement, Sanitarium said employees will be offered transfers to other locations where possible. The rest will be assisted to transition to new employment. Sanitarium began manufacturing at Currumbong in 1898.
More than 1.6 million people are still displaced from their homes in Myanmar due to heavy rains in July and August. The damaging water caused landslides and floods that affected 12 of the nation's 14 regions. The Seventh-day Adventist Church in Myanmar has been a constant source of outreach and relief since the devastation began. The church has now shifted its focus to regions of the nation that haven't been reached due to location and structural damage, including collapsed bridges. Church members recently visited 5 villages to distribute food to more than 400 families.
And finally in the news this week, as a result of recent floods, windstorms, and landslides in rural and urban areas of Colombia, Adventist humanitarians are on the ground helping residents recover. The damage from several weeks of rain affected 30,000 people. The Adventist Development and Relief Agency responded by distributing more than 200 food parcels that included items including rice, lentils, and vegetable oil. ADRA workers have also distributed mattresses to families whose houses were flooded.
Coming up, a panel discussion to help bring in International Literacy Day.
My brother's unexpected death shocked me into changing my life. A friend of mine said, why don't you do a triathlon? So I swam and rode and ran until I discovered life is more than just human strength. I race because my health matters. I believe because my faith matters. I'm Ed, I'm a Christian. I am an Ironman, and I've discovered my whole life matters.
Меня зовут Азанетта, и я говорю по-русски. Есть так много замечательных видеофильмов, но так мало из них переводятся. Вы можете помочь.
Join the Amara translation and caption team today. Amara is easy to learn and fun. You can volunteer in your free time. Join this community today and provide great content in your language.
Every year, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization marks a day to draw attention to literacy around the world. The theme for this year's International Literacy Day is Literacy and Sustainable Societies. On Tuesday, September 8th, organizations and individuals will examine the links between literacy and developing sustainable communities around the world. I sat down with Maitland DePinto and Sonia Funa to discuss the importance of literacy and to highlight the negative effects of illiteracy in men and women of all ages. So when people think about literacy, usually they think only of education, but we know that it involves more than employment or job performance. How does literacy or illiteracy impact our society?
I just returned from a trip with ADRA, and I work for ADRA, and I went to the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we have a program there that is teaching literacy and numeracy to adult women. And we learned a few things. They said, yes, certainly we can help our children now with school. We can read the report cards. We couldn't do that before. But it's also improved the relationships that they have with their husbands and with their other neighbors and their community members. And some of the feedback we received from the women was that now they can write their husbands love notes, and now if their husband tells them to meet them at a particular store, they can read the awning, they can read the sign, and will be able to meet them there.
So it improves the communication.
It improves communication for sure, and it really has a real empowering effect, because the final feedback that we received from women was that now we will make sure that our girls who were not previously going to school are going to school, because we see the power beyond the education piece, which is very critical, but we see how it can change lives.
Oh, that's great. The theme for International Literacy Day this year is Literacy and Sustainable Societies. How are these two linked?
When a mother learns to read, it's life transforming. Mm-hmm. It not only changes her life, it changes the life of the whole family. And if you extend that, then the community and the country and so forth. When a mother learns to read, all the indicators of education, of health, economic indicators, all those are improved. Mm-hmm. But I think the greatest thing is not so much that they can learn to read to get a better job, which is oftentimes happens, but what it does to their self-worth, mm-hmm. and how that transforms their life. They will attempt to do things that they never would have had the confidence to do before. They see themselves completely different and fitting into society than they did before.
And I guess it goes back to also, it gives a good example to her children, which starts a better trend.
Well, as Sonia said, one of the things we find is that these mothers didn't have an opportunity to read when they were growing up. They were kept back to help with the family business, weren't allowed to go to school for various reasons. But now they say, I will make sure that my kids go to school, because they can see the difference that it's made in their lives, and they want to make sure that that is going to happen in their children's lives. Yeah. And they can help them with their homework.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess that almost answers my next question, which was how it impacts women and families. And did you want to add something else? Sure.
I think it really just opens up potential, and it really just opens up the minds of community members to say, this is what else we can do. Oftentimes in the communities that I go into, There's not a lot of access. There's not a lot of access to schools or to jobs beyond, let's say, farming. But what education does is it broadens your mind to think outside of what's in front of you. And so you really start to see that people, when they start thinking differently, they start doing differently. And so it really just has far-reaching impacts.
What sort of programs is the Adventist Church providing around the world for literacy?
Hope for Humanity, the organization that I'm working with, is sponsoring literacy classes in about 10 countries around the world. About 100,000 people have learned to read, mostly women, since we started our program about 10, 12 years ago. And the reason why literacy is the largest part of our portfolio of projects we fund is we wanted to engage our members in reaching out to their community and making a difference in a way that would really make a difference. Mm-hmm. And we find that when a person learns to read, it's life transforming. And we also found that even though a person may not have much of an education, even only an elementary school education, they don't have a lot of skills, but with some training and with some support, they can teach other people to read. So it's kind of a double benefit into the people that are learning to read, but it is an act of service and mission for our members to be engaged in being able to help transform people's lives.
Yeah, that's great. And is there a school, if there was a school or a local church or even just a family who wanted to do something in their community to help with the literacy, like what sort of projects can they participate in?
I think the church, schools, youth groups, community members can really make a big difference by prioritizing, informing people of why education is so important, about why literacy is so important. So I think outreach would be the best gift and the best service that they could have. Outreach to community members to see perhaps why communities don't have literacy programs and trying to work within their networks to be able to bridge any gaps.
Here in the United States, there's a number of different organizations that are involved with literacy. So if some of our churches, some of our members wanted to be engaged, you don't have to start from square one and start your own literacy program. You can volunteer to a local literacy council to become a teacher.
Oh, great. And they can maybe also refer people who might need a literacy program to learn how to read in their church. That's great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up, find out how to create a great pin in Pinterest.
But up next, see what's in the current issue of Adventist World Magazine.
A recent study found that regularly working overtime increases the risk of heart disease by 60%. Yet the typical American works 47 hours a week, 164 more hours per year than only 20 years ago. And 1/3 don't even take all their earned vacation days. And that doesn't even count additional work responsibilities at home or a second job. That's a fact. But there's hope. Research suggests that it is not the intensity of energy expenditure that produces burnout, but rather the duration of expenditure without recovery. God foresaw our dilemma and gave us the Sabbath, a weekly gift of physical, mental, and spiritual renewal in our demanding lives.
I can't remember a time in my life when I wasn't dating a guy or interested in one. And this is where I got my security from as a woman. This is what filled the void in my life. I prayed about it and I said, God, I need your help. My happiness goes up and down with the ups and downs of my relationship. It's dependent upon how well my relationship is doing. And I don't want to live this way anymore.
Welcome back. Kimberly Moran shares a preview of the latest edition of Adventist World Magazine.
The September 2015 Adventist World is my pick for the best edition of the year because of the timeliness, richness, and diversity of the stories inside. The staff has selected the best of the best from our coverage of the 60th General Conference session held this past summer in San Antonio, Texas. I don't have time to give you information on every article, so here's just a bit of what you'll find. First, there's a candid peek at the re-elected Adventist World Church President Ted N.C. Wilson in Bill Knott's interview titled, "It's a Very Humbling Experience." In it, Wilson talks about the burdens of his role, getting more sleep, handling disappointments, and what he will focus on in the next 5 years. Then, we have a story on the vote on women's ordination. Andrew McChesney and Marcos Paseggi have written a comprehensive news article on the subject. In another news piece, McChesney describes the landmark updates voted on the session at the Adventist Church's fundamental beliefs. And on the human interest side, there is a photo essay by Heather Quintana. In just a few words, she shares the life stories of about a dozen church members. And some are fun, some are quite poignant. Another fun piece is one I wrote on Davy Crockett's Adventist descendant, Ryan McCoy, who recited the United States Declaration of Independence at the Alamo during the GC session. McCoy is the director of a media ministry company, and he's the 5th great-grandson of Crockett. For these stories and more, be sure to visit www.adventistworld.org.
For this week's Tech Corner, John Beckett explains the benefits of photo location tracking on smartphones.
Did you know that the most used cameras on the photo sharing site Flickr are smartphones? This highlights that for most of us, our smartphone is the only camera we carry, and so it ends up being the camera we take a lot of pictures with. One really great thing about taking pictures on your mobile phone is that you can easily share them. And it turns out that photos taken by any digital camera have always included a lot of information inside the picture file. For instance, they include the time the picture was taken, the camera model, the shutter speed, whether or not the flash was used, etc. Unless you have it turned off, photos taken on your smartphone also probably include the GPS location. With all this info in your photos, you can do some really fun stuff later. For instance, you can make up a nice photo map of when and where you traveled, complete with pictures. You can also do things like find a photo based on where you remember taking the picture. Since this information is embedded inside the file, pictures you text to other people or upload to social media sites probably also include that information. Well, I'm sure a lot of people aren't eager to have their movements logged just because they snap pictures. And it's actually pretty easy to shut it off. On iPhones, look under the privacy settings and turn off location services for the camera. And on Androids, look under the camera application and turn off the GPS tag option. For me, I really like having that extra information recorded so I can make photo maps later. But if you don't like it, take a few minutes and turn it off.
What exactly is Pinterest? Who uses it? And what are you supposed to do with your pins? Angela answers these questions and more for this week's Social Media Report.
Of the more than 1 million visitors daily, nearly 70% are female. Most people use this website as a visual bookmark for web pages that hold information they want to see again. So more people are likely to end up on your website than through Facebook or Twitter. You can pin an image either by putting in the website address directly or by loading a picture manually, then adding the website it came from. With either of these methods, it's important to add a brief but complete description of what the pin is all about. Pins that work especially well are beautiful images with title text explaining what will be found on the website, be it a recipe, instructions for a craft, or something that they'll learn. To optimize images for Pinterest, try using Canva.com or PicMonkey.com. So check it out sometime. You may find this is a perfect platform to share creative ideas from your church or ministry. You could create boards for vacation Bible school ideas and resources, your church members' vegetarian recipes, educational tools used in Bible study classes, inspiration from the Bible, and so much more. And you can find us at pinterest.com/AdventistChurch. Even if you don't decide to start a page for your organization, but have a personal account, make sure to pin your favorite ministry resources for others to find.
And now let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history. This week, learn how the Polynesian nation of Tonga first received the Adventist message.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History, a week of firsts in mission fields. On September 2 and 3 in 1883, John N. Loughborough, then serving as a missionary in England, organized 20 believers in the port city of Southampton into the first Adventist church in Great Britain. A few days earlier in this week, but 12 years later, on August 30, 1895, the first Adventist missionaries to Tonga landed in the island country. American pastor Edward Hilliard, his wife Ida, and their young daughter Alta worked for 4 years in Tonga, where today there are 3,000 Seventh-day Adventists. But 33 years after they had commenced Adventist mission work in Tonga, in 1928, aged in their late 70s, Edward and Ida joined Alta and her husband in India, and they died there 8 years later, still serving as missionaries. And the next day, literally the next day, August 31, 1895, but thousands of miles away, the first Sabbath service in the country of Uruguay took place when a Sabbath school meeting was held with 12 in attendance in the city of Nueva Palmira. It was led by an American Bible instructor, Lucy Post. She was the first Adventist missionary to work in Uruguay. Remarkably, she had only just volunteered for mission service at the age of 50. Lucy Post served in Uruguay another 7 years until the age of 62. And as her story and the stories of Edward and Ida Hilliard show, it's never too late to serve God, even to go to a foreign country as a missionary. That was This Week in Seventh-day Adventist History.
Before we bring our program to a close, we would like to say goodbye to Andre Brink, who's the producer of ANN and Associate Director of Communication for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Andre, we will miss your commitment to excellence and quality in our broadcasts. Although we're sad to see you go, we ask God to continue to bless you and your family as you begin your next chapter. Thank you.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
In the meantime, join our global conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can connect with Adventists worldwide through more stories, photos, and videos. Visit Facebook/Adventist News, Twitter @Adventist Church, and Instagram @Adventist Church.
Our good news for this week comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 55, verse 22. The passage says, "Give your burdens to the Lord, and He will take care of you. He will not permit the godly to slip and fall."
That's our program for this week. And remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.